Okay, let's. Shall we carry on? Let us carry on. We have now come to the point where we have finished the first verse of the Mahamangala Sutta. So the first verse is finished. That means we can start verse number 2. And that has taken us approximately 2 days, almost 2 full days to do verse number 1. There is 11 verses. That means 11 times 2, 22 days to finish this. But the good news is that the first verse is probably by far the most important one and the most interesting one. The other ones are also interesting, but it will obviously go much faster. Otherwise, Bobby is going to have a headache if we have to have 22 days. Can you do it 22 days, Bobby? I said, no, can't do. Okay, so we have to carry on. So let us move on to the second verse. So here you go. To live in a suitable place, having previously done good karma, and to apply oneself in the right way, this is the greatest good fortune. Yeah. Pattirupa desa vaso pubbe chakata punyata atta samma panidi cha etang mangalamuttamang. Yep. So this is that second verse. So what exactly does this mean? So there's only one sutta that I could find that really talks about this a little bit, and even that sutta doesn't say all that much. But this is a sutta in the Anguttara 4:31, which is here translated as situations. So the Buddha says, mendicants, there are these 4 situations. When these situations come about, any god or human who takes advantage of them will soon acquire great and abundant wealth. What for? Living in a suitable region or place, relying on true persons, being rightly resolved in oneself, and past merit. So here you have 3 of the 4 in the verb. The only thing that is added to it is relying on true persons. But that kind of comes from the first verse, right? We had relying on true persons. That's the Sappurisa Sangseva or something like that. So that's already kind of included here. So if you do all of these things, you acquire great and abundant wealth. And great and abundant wealth can be understood in 2 ways. It can be understood as the wealth, ordinary wealth, or the wealth of the Dhamma. And so here both of these can be understood. These are the 4 situations. When these situations come about, any god and human who takes advantage of them will soon acquire great and abundant wealth. So, what does this mean? What does it mean to live in a suitable place or a suitable region? What is suitable? And you can think about this in many ways. Yeah, a suitable place is a place where there is no dangers. There is no kind of wars going on. There are no active volcanoes. There is no tsunamis kind of around the corner. Yeah, it's reasonably safe from natural disasters and also human-made disasters. That's kind of a suitable place. So one of the things we want to do, we want to feel safe in our life. And this is kind of one of the things. But of course, from a Dhamma perspective, it is even more important to live in a place where the Dhamma is available. So where would that be? Well, that would be not in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, difficult to have Dhamma in Afghanistan. Or some places you live, you cannot really get access to the Dhamma. So the fact that you have it here in Malaysia is great. You still have a very large population which has a Buddhist background, and that's really helpful. So wherever the Dhamma is available is a suitable place. Wherever you get access to the areas, the noble ones, is a suitable place. And of course these days, because the suttas are available, arguably that can be anywhere. But also, it is also good to have access to living examples. To me, one of the kind of powerful things about the Dhamma is that it has 2 things coming together. On the one hand, we have the ancient tradition of the suttas. On the other hand, we have the living example of the thing still being alive in the present day. And those 2 things coming together is very powerful. Because we have the ancient tradition, it means that we all respect the Buddha at the end of the day. And that kind of reduces the hierarchy a little bit in the tradition. We don't have to kind of take a teacher as our final guru, anything like that. We all take the Buddha as our respected teacher. This is kind of the great thing. On the other hand, we have a living tradition, which is inspiring to see that the Dhamma still works. And so for that reason, you want to have both the suttas and you want to have the living tradition. So it's good to see noble ones when you have the opportunity. Don't forget that. Don't kind of stray too far away from this sort of Dhamma. So this is what living in a suitable place is. But more profoundly, often people ask this kind of question, how do you make choices in life? How do you choose where to live? How do you choose the job that you should have? How do you choose who you choose as your partner, your husband or wife, or maybe whether you should have a husband or wife? And these kind of questions. How do you make all of these difficult choices? Now we are asking about suitable place to live. And there's a very simple answer that is always useful in all of these questions, by which we can make any kind of decisions in life. And this is something the Buddha talks about in the suttas in a number of places. Wherever you live, where living there gives rise to more good qualities and reduces the bad qualities, that is where you should live. So if you can choose between A and B, if A is going to give rise to more good qualities and B is going to not give rise to so many good qualities, if A is going to reduce your bad qualities and B is not going to reduce so many bad qualities, you should always choose A, because it will lead to more good qualities. In other words, you will make more progress in the Dhamma. Wherever you make progress in the Dhamma, that's where you should live. That is the most suitable place. So that is a very universal, applicable idea, And then you can kind of so you can think where you're living now. Is it ideal? Well, what do you want to do in your life? Well, you want to be around other good people. Are you around that? Is it easy? Have you got easy access to other good people where you're living now? Are you living in a place that is suitable for developing your mind a little bit? Where it's easy to be generous and kind? You can do that in many places. Where it's easy to do a little bit of meditation. All of these things are things you should take into account. Is it easy to access the areas, if you like, whether on the internet or live or whatever it might be? So you think about these things. Where are you most likely to succeed? And very often we think about these things from a worldly perspective. I want a nice apartment. I want a nice car. I want a nice relationship. And we don't really look at it from the perspective of Dhamma. What will actually be good Dhamma results? How do you choose a good partner in life? The way to choose a good partner is to choose someone who has similar values to what you have. Someone who kind of helps you to grow in the Dhamma. Don't choose someone because they are wealthy, because they are good looking, because they have all of these superficial characteristics. It's all irrelevant. Do they have the right heart? Do they have the right mind? Do they have the right ideas? Will they help you to grow? That is the right kind of person to be with. So we are moving our mind away from worldly way of thinking towards a Dhamma way of thinking. Should you get a divorce? Again, similar kind of ideas, which will help you decide what is the right thing to do here. So this is living in a suitable place, in a suitable region. That's how you think about this. Then you're being rightly resolved in oneself. Sammatta, samma panidi. Panidi means like direction. Samma is right, and atta is oneself. So oneself being rightly directed. It's almost as if you're heading in the right direction. You're moving in the right, if you want to go from here to Singapore, if you go north, you're not going to get there, right? You're going to have to go south to go to Singapore, right? That's the only way, not directly south, but a little bit south and a little bit, a little bit east, southeast a little bit, that's kind of Singapore. If you go north, you get to Bangkok. You don't want to go to Bangkok, so go south instead. And so being directed in the right way, having a sense that you are heading, your vision, you're looking in the right direction and then moving towards that. And this is the idea of having right view within you. You have your sight locked on positive qualities, locked on developing your mind, locked onto Nibbana eventually, heading in that direction. What is Nibbana? It's the highest happiness. It's the ending of all suffering. It's the finding the meaning of life. That is what it is about. It's anything that is useful in this world is Nibbana. And so that is where you have your mind directed towards that. Atta sammapanidhi, is this idea. And it is very closely related to the idea of yoniso manasikara, because yoniso manasikara is the right attention. Right attention is directing the mind, directing yourself in the right way. So whenever you have yoniso manasikara, you are directed in the right way. Sammapanidhi, moving in the right direction, heading in the right direction. So these are very closely related to each other. Heading in the right way, thinking about the world in the right way, not being attached to the wrong kind of things. One of the kind of weird things that I was just looking at recently is an alternative ways of thinking about the idea of right view. And very often when we talk about right view, we think about right view as the idea of rebirth, of karma, of there being parents that we have to look after, of being enlightened people in the world, Four Noble Truths. All of these things are a right view. But there is another way of thinking about right view that the Buddha sometimes talks about. And one of that kinds of right view is to not to think that there is no blame in sensual pleasures. That sensual pleasures are okay, if you like. That is one of the kinds of wrong view. And the other one is eternalism. Eternalism is another kind of wrong view, the idea that there is some kind of state you can achieve that lasts forever. And those two kinds of right view is something that you don't hear about very often. That there is no blame in sensual pleasures is a kind of right view. That there's no blame that is a kind of wrong view. Sensual pleasures are to be blamed. This is right view. And what is interesting about that, it is very closely connected with what we know as the asavas. The asavas are like the root defilements of the mind. And two of those asavas, one is the kama asava, which is the defilement of the mind which has to do with sensual pleasures, and the other one is the bhava asava, the defilement of the mind that has to do with desire for existence. And you see, these two wrong views are very similar to these asavas. So if you want to overcome these asavas, which are the things that drive your samsaric existence, that make you attached to the world, you have to start out with the right view that these are problems. Then when you have that right view, then you can gradually overcome these asavas. These are the main things that block us from achieving awakening on the path. These are the ultimate things that make us bound, if you like, fettered to the world, are these two asavas, these two defilements or corruptions or outflowings of the mind. So this is kind of one way of thinking about the idea of being rightly resolved. You are resolved, atta sammapanidhi, towards seeing the danger in that sensual world, seeing the danger in existence. You are moving against the asavas. You're having right view about what is dangerous there. And this is a deep kind of right view, really deep kind of right view, because largely beings are attached to the senses. What's so dangerous about the five senses? We're just playing around, just enjoying ourselves. Anger is bad, but how can enjoyment be bad? Well, it is bad because it ties you to something. It leads to more rebirth. It leads to more suffering down the track. That is why it is bad. That's why you want to overcome it. And so part of this Dhamma, part of this teaching, is a gradual understanding of the five sense world as inherently problematic. And it's very easy to see these days. This is what you see on TV. This is what you see when with all the wars around the world. This is what you see with all the problems. What you are seeing when you see that is the danger in the five sense world. That is what it means. When you see your own life, sometimes you have sickness and illness. When you see people dying, when you see people losing their wealth, when you see all the problems in the world, all of them come down to the five sense world. That is the problem. And so you direct your mind slightly away from that. And when you direct your mind away from that, not taking refuge in the five sense world, but instead taking refuge in the meditation, in the satipatthanas, in the breath meditation, going inwards, experiencing peace and joy within, that is where you find the refuge from that world. This is the applying yourself, resolving yourself in the right way, rightly resolved in yourself. So it matters, a little bit. So even for lay people to understand the dangers in that world, to gradually move away from that, stage by stage, is very helpful. It allows you access to something deeper, something more profound. That is what this is about. It may sound impossible for you. How can I give up the five senses? Well, you can't give it up, but you can reduce your attachment a little bit. This is what this is about. Understanding the impermanence, understanding the danger of attachment, understanding how everything is out of control. That is the point. Why do you grieve when someone gets ill and they die? Well, because of attachment to the five sense world. Why do you grieve when you lose some of your most favorite belongings? Same thing. Why do you get angry when politicians do bad things in the world? Because of attachment to that world. Everything kind of revolves around that in our ordinary lives. So rightly resolved, moving away from that, moving in a new direction, heading, doing something else. And ultimately, it comes back to also to the bhava-asava, understanding the danger of samsaric existence. It's interesting, you ask a Buddhist, and they will often say, I understand that rebirth is bad, But actually, most Buddhists would like to be reborn, because not being reborn sounds worse, right? What do you mean, not being reborn? Actually, I'll take rebirth any time. So we give lip service to the Dhamma, but we don't really understand what is going on. Actually, deep down, we would like to be reborn. Actually, I would like to be a deva in my next life. Yay! Enjoyment, happiness, Deep down, that's true, isn't it, for many of us? Because understanding the problem of rebirth is actually quite hard, and it needs a bit of reflection to understand that. And giving up, no rebirth, what does that mean? What am I going to be if I don't get reborn? Am I just going to disappear? That sounds terrible. It sounds scary, just disappearing. It's because we don't understand what that means. If we understood what it meant, it would say, hooray, I'm going to disappear. Yay, finally, I've had enough. It's a lack of understanding. Again, the resolve is wrong. The outlook is wrong. We don't understand what is happening here. And so this thing takes deep contemplation, deep understanding. It starts with overcoming the five sense world. And as you overcome the ego, as you gradually overcome the sense of self, you start to appreciate what is going on. In your meditation, as you become peaceful, your sense of self is declining. Your sense of self expresses itself by thinking. I am thinking. You can feel this is me when you think. When you don't think, you are actually reducing your sense of self and reducing your ego. And because of that, you are less present. What does that feel like? Actually, it feels really nice. So reducing the sense of self is a very positive thing. So keep on reducing it. And one day you will understand why giving it up entirely and stopping rebirth is so powerful. So this is how you gradually rightly direct yourself in the right direction. You understand how you move forward in a positive kind of way. This is what this is all about. Then you have the last one, having done past merit. So if you haven't done past merit, you haven't got a chance. Is that what it means? So how do you know if you've done past merit? Well, you don't. It's too late, right? If you haven't done it, well, that's it. You're stuffed for this life. You're never stuffed. The point, what this means is that if you don't make an end of things in this life, and the chances of that is quite small, that not, how many arahants do we have in this room here that, will become arahants in this life? Probably not that many, but whatever it is, at the very least, you want to give yourself a good foundation for carrying on. So whether that carrying on is for the rest of this life, so you make merit so the rest of this life becomes better, or you make merit so that your next life you're already standing on a high level and you can just carry on. Yeah. So this is a reminder that this merit is a very positive thing. In the suttas, the Buddha speaks to the monks, and he says to the monks, don't be afraid of merit. It's one of those interesting little suttas, because sometimes monks, they think, our job is just to meditate, we shouldn't be doing any hard work, okay, so, you go to some Buddhist countries and they will do everything for you if you're a monk. Don't lift a finger, Venerable Sir, we will do that for you. Don't lift that cup, I will hold it to your mouth so you can drink it. It's almost like that sometimes when you travel to the Buddhist countries. And I say, go away, I want to lift my own cup, thank you very much. And but when you live in the West, one of the great things about living in the West, no one is going to do that sort of thing for you. Yeah, you have to do it yourself, which is kind of nice. But the point is that even monastics, said the Buddha, you should make merit. Why? Because merit is a word for happiness. If you make merit, you experience happiness. So past merit, the why it is so important, because it will give you access to happiness in this life. And if you haven't got enough happiness, access to enough happiness in this life, make sure you have access to that happiness in the future life. Make merit to become happy in the future. Don't make merit to gain a big mansion or a big car or whatever. That's kind of irrelevant. Be happy instead. Far more important. You see too many people in this world who are really wealthy and really famous and have all of these qualities, and they are miserable. They have made merit for the wrong reason. Yeah, who cares about those big mansions if you are miserable, depressed, and sad? It is kind of irrelevant. Sometimes you see really poor people in the world, they are really happy. Ajahn Brahm himself, he grew up in a very kind of ordinary working class family in London, in a council flat. They were poor, when he grew up in the 1960s or whatever. But Ajahn Brahm is one of the most happy people in the world. Ajahn Brahm is he says with a smile on his face and a gleeful smile, everything is suffering, and he's just laughing at it. That's kind of Ajahn Brahm's attitude to the world. He's a very, very happy person, because he has poured all that past actions into being happy, rather than kind of having some great material wealth or great material well-being. So the purpose of merit is to make yourself happy. Do good things, do acts of kindness that lead to all of that happiness in the future. Then you are living in the right way. That is the purpose of past merit. So one way of doing that, and one way we will talk more about later, is generosity, because generosity is also part of the sutta, and we will talk a bit about how to be generous, because you will be surprised that there is an art to generosity. Generosity is not straightforward. In one sense it is straightforward, but another way you have to think about it in the right way, and as you do so, you will make much more good merit as a consequence. So that is the second verse of the Mahamangala Sutta. So this happened really fast. Wow. Okay. So this is the greatest good fortune to live in that particular way. So here is a little verse at the end of that sutta which I didn't read out. So when a man or a woman or person lives in a suitable region, making friends with the noble ones, possessing right resolve, and having merit from the past, grain, riches, fame, and reputation and happiness come to them. I think some of these verses have been added later on, and they have been made a little bit worldly, riches, fame, reputation. I mean, it's not really all that important. The important one is happiness down here. That's the one that matters. So this is what we're trying to get out of this. So be a little bit skeptical about some of these verses at the end. Okay, that is enough suttas for today. So tomorrow we will move on to verse number 3, But for now, let's just take another short break and we can do another Q&A session just to end off the day here.